That's in Indy?
And yeah, and Indianapolis can't run, under the lights. They don't have the lights to run at night. So it'll be interesting to see if they get the race in or if it's going to be postponed until Monday or Tuesday for that matter.
Well, wow, Indianapolis, the Brickyard and VMI's football stadium, both without lights. Who would have thought that anyone would make that comparison? I guess that's what VMI is going for. Hey, tell me about the Speedway Motorsports sale of the tracks, Jerry. I mean, it seems like they have every track now. What's the fallout going to be? What's the impact going to be of this sale?
Well, it's more of a merger between International Speedway Corporation and NASCAR, and the on the surface, the biggest change or advantage, whatever you want to call it, is that NASCAR will have more flexibility and more freedom to move race dates
be in the playoff. And I think because of the popularity of Bristol as a track, that's why it was left out of the playoff initially. Oh, it doesn't need it. Everybody wants to go to the night race in August. That's going to be a big deal and all this. But and I do think the playoff has caused this, it has focused the attention. Well, these 10 races are. So I guess the question that I'm going to ask is, could the 2020 tracks in the playoffs, could that be temporary? And, we see 5 new tracks in 5 years from 2020.
Well, I think that you're definitely going to see a lot of change, a lot more change. Like I said a moment ago, but what NASCAR is doing for 2020 is just kind of an appetizer, if you will, for the main course, which will begin in 2021. I mean, NASCAR track either in the Pacific Northwest or in the New York City area. I think the economy has gotten to the point now, and especially with this merger between ISC and NASCAR, that potentially if we may see some spot or partners that are coming on board to help maybe build tracks there, or we could see NASCAR going to tracks it doesn't go to right now. For example, we could have certainly they have the Xfinity Series race in Road America in Wisconsin, but maybe the Cup race, a Cup race could be located there. You've got the track out in Utah. Was Miller Motorsports Park. I'm not even sure. I think they changed the name of it. So there's a lot of other tracks, that potentially could make the schedule. And you mentioned Dover. Yes, both their races will not be, or neither one of the races will be in the playoffs come next year. And honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if we see some tracks lose one of their 2 races, and Dover could be one of those potentially. I mean, I know there's a lot of fans that enjoy going to the races at Dover, but if there's an opportunity to maybe have more success at another facility, I think certainly the merged NASCAR and ISC have to take a look at that kind of thing.
We're hearing a lot about Nashville. That's been conversation a lot, and especially since the people of Bristol now own Nashville and such. Anyway, we're talking to Jerry Bonkowski on this Motorsports Weekend, and I know that you just tweeted out and wrote about Tony Stewart's championships that will be celebrated at Throwback Weekend here. I guess that's going to happen in Darlington. I guess when I think of Tony Stewart and I think of this week, I think of him running in Daytona and the Coca-Cola 600, but nobody's doing that, to my knowledge, this week. Do you think anybody's going to try that again in the future?
The logistics are so difficult. It's going to be hard, but I think you'll definitely see it at some point. I think that maybe a guy like a Kurt Busch might want to do it again, or maybe a Kyle Busch might be willing to do it, or Kyle Larson. I know he's expressed interest as well too. I think that you probably will see at least one driver attempt to double, as they call it, in the next 3 to 5 years. I think it definitely is something that there are drivers out there that want to that are inspired to do so. So I think that you will see it, and I'd like to see it become like a regular thing where at least one, maybe even 2 or 3 drivers from the series go to Indy and try to their luck there, and then they would fly to Charlotte for the race weekend, whereas the IndyCar race starts in the early in the morning rather. But they could certainly push the Cup race back to maybe even a 7 o'clock start, which would allow a little bit more opportunity for teams and drivers to get from Indy to Charlotte to compete in the Cup race.
Well, you think of the endurance, though, that you have to do both Coca-Cola 600 and Indianapolis 500. I mean, it's amazing, But I'm also just reminded of the days in which I covered high school hockey, and I would see teams. And I know that if you ever had somebody win, like in Indy, and it's like, oh, I can't talk to the press now, I've got to go, that sort of thing. Because I can remember times where a team would actually win a state championship or something. You'd always have two guys, wait, I got to go to my amateur practice now. And he couldn't even celebrate with the team. I mean, that was the sort of case with it. So, yeah, it is a lot to ask of the participant and such. What was your thoughts on the NASCAR Hall of Fame class? Buddy Baker, Joe Gibbs, Bobby Labonte, Tony Stewart, Waddell Watson. I mean, I especially Gibbs. You knew he was going to make it. You knew that Stewart was going to make it. Nobody, I think, is going to say, these guys don't belong. But who do you think got left out?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I mean, there's just so many names out there. I mean, I think that the way NASCAR has made the fact that there's 5 drivers typically chosen, plus there's one other additional, like we saw as before, get the lifetime award as well too. I think that going forward, there's still a number of guys out there that could make the Hall of Fame, and they should make the Hall of Fame. But I think that we're going to come to a point now that we're probably going to start seeing the class size go from 5 to maybe 4 or even 3. Because eventually I think you're going to run out of drivers. I mean, I know this sounds kind of trite to say that, but again, it's my opinion. But I think that there still are a number of drivers, crew chiefs, team owners, individuals who made significant contributions to the sport that certainly would be eligible to make the Hall of Fame. And I think that it's the biggest honor in the sport. There's no question about it. So I think that we'll see some guys that just have had difficulty making it, or have either been on the ballot or whatever. And then you got some other guys coming down the road. I mean, Dale Earnhardt Jr. He'll be eligible here. I believe is it next year or the year after? I know he'll be eligible too. So he'll probably be a first ballot selection. And there's a lot of other guys. Ricky Rudd is another one that comes to mind. I think that he'll definitely make it, and just several other guys that deserve to make it as well.
I guess one of the questions I have is how many stock car halls of fames are there? Because I keep hearing, wait a minute, didn't we just have a Hall of Fame somewhere else? And the NASCAR, the one that you're speaking of is the one in which the Daytona 500 car goes to on display, that sort of thing. Because it seems to me, and forgive me for my lack of being able to rattle off all the halls of fame, but I keep getting, there's another stock car racing Hall of Fame in the newspaper or something like that. Is this the most prestigious one, the NASCAR Hall of Fame, in your opinion?
It's certainly up there. I mean, you've got 2 other primary motorsports halls of fame that are very well respected and very big. You've got the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America, which is was in Michigan for decades, and then it's moved recently to Daytona, down in the Daytona area, right by the Speedway. And then you've also got the International Motorsports Hall of Fame, which is in Talladega, right next to Talladega Super Speedway, and that's more of an all-encompassing Hall of Fame for drivers and contributors, team owners, crew chiefs, and that in all forms of motorsport, not just NASCAR. So there's certainly quite a few out there, or several out there, but they all have very unique niches that they're in, and it's just another avenue for drivers that are worthy of being inducted into a Hall of Fame to be inducted into one of those, and then eventually, if they're NASCAR-related people, they certainly have they'll be considered for the NASCAR Hall of Fame too.
Okay, William Byron has the pole at the Coca-Cola 600, and he's doing it in a Camaro. And, we talked a lot about how, is Chevy still a factor in NASCAR and all that? But it seems like recently they've started to do better. Is this, I guess, can we really start expecting to see Chevrolet finally compete with the Camaro for the rest of the season, beginning with the Coca-Cola 600, in your opinion?
Well, it's interesting you should say that because my colleague Dustin Long had a piece up this morning, his Fast Friday 5, which I included a segment about, Hendrick Motorsports. They seem to be almost I don't want to say unanimous selection, but certainly they have turned the tide with what Byron did in the All-Star race, and now that he's got pole, you got Chase Elliott winning a few races back. You got Alex Bowman having three runner-up finishes in a row. You got Jimmy Johnson who's starting to come back into form too as well. So it's not just going to be Joe Gibbs racing in the Toyotas. It's not just going to be the Ford, Team Penske. It's not going to be Brad Keselowski versus Kyle Busch, who each have 3 wins. I mean, I think there's a lot of racing still left. Remember, this is the 13th race of the season and the halfway point of the 26-race regular season. So, this is a very big race for everybody, particularly those guys that want to race their way into the playoffs. And we've only had, I believe, 6 different winners in the first 12 races. So, the playoff field will be 16 drivers, and we're probably going to see several. I'd be willing to bet you that as many as maybe 8, or 9 even might make it into the playoffs based upon only on points as opposed to wins. So the guys that have won up to now, I think they're going to certainly have the opportunity to earn more wins. But I think you're going to start seeing some other guys who haven't won, such as a Kevin Harvick or a Jimmy Johnson, or an Alex Bowman, or a William Byron. I think you're going to see them in victory lane very quickly here over the next 5, 6, 7 weeks probably.
Yeah. Now, are you picking Jimmy Johnson again here in the Coca-Cola 600? Are you going to still be on that kick?
I'm still going back and forth on it. I keep on waffling. This time, for whatever reason, I don't think I'm going to pick Jimmy Johnson.
Okay.
I think I'm going to lean towards Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick. I think that Harvick is long overdue. He's very good when it comes to long races. So I like to call them the endurance races, if you will. As is Kyle Busch, who's the defending winner of this race too, as well. So I think that one of those two guys is probably going to wind up winning on Sunday.
Now, I hate to say this, but the big story that I'm reading, it keeps coming up about the Indianapolis 500 is, there are no rest stops at the Brickyard. It seems like, how do drivers, when they have to go and all that, and I'm thinking, my goodness, I mean, you got to be so dehydrated there and using up all the fluids. Is that even going to be a problem in all this? But let me ask this, the storylines of the Brickyard, the Indianapolis 500, who do you like in that race?
Man, that one is wide open.
Yeah.
Certainly you got Simon Pagenaud on the pole, Team Penske. I mean, all 4 of the Team Penske cars are in the top 12. So you've got that to look at. You've got the Chip Ganassi drivers, Scott Dixon, certainly, the former winner. He's won 5 championships, if you will. He's also a former Indy 500 winner. I think I know we talked about this on Monday. I think there's certainly going to be some surprise guys that could do very well in this race. Jack Harvey immediately comes to mind. I think that he is one of the most underrated guys out there. You got James Hinchcliffe that he's had a rough month of May, but I think that he could bounce back, and it would be great to see him. It'd be a fantastic story. So you got Sage Karam, his only race of the season looks like. I mean, you've got so many guys out there. I mean, we won't have Fernando Alonso, but I think still we're going to have a lot of world-class drivers, and even some surprises that have a chance of winning the Indianapolis 500.
What about Castroneves? Because I'm reading, hey, if he can win in that Pennzoil number 3, then he'll join Foyt, Unser, and Rick Mears. Those are 3 names right there that have won the Brickyard 4 times. Do you think it's plausible?
It's plausible. I mean, you've got Team Penske power. I mean, whenever you have that, it certainly puts you among the elite, if you will, of drivers who have a chance of winning this thing. I mean, I would love to see him win it because he's had several close calls over the last 4 or 5 years. I think his last Indy 500 win was 2009, I believe it was. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's been quite a few years for him to do so. So I think that you look at where Elio is right now. He's racing Elio's last shot at winning the 500. So I mean, he's what, 40? I think Elio's 43, I believe it is.
I think 42, but yeah, he's approaching the mid 40s and all. Yes.
Right.
I mean, look, the Intimidator, Dale Earnhardt, finally won the Daytona 500 when he was pushing 50. So, I mean,
Right.
I don't see why this would be absolutely Castronovas' last chance. But nevertheless, it's one of the storylines. It's the one that I'm kind of looking at here for Sunday at the Brickyard. And since you got Elio Castroneves, of course, it's spelled hello. I'm going to take you out with Sop with Camel and Hello Hello from 1967. It's Jerry Bonkowski, the right rev of speed, and we'll be joining him at 1 p.m. on Monday. We'll be talking about all the exciting races. I'm going to be watching them. I'm going to be taking notes. I'm going to have a lot of great questions. That'll continue with Josh Brown, Knockout Nation, Tri-City Sports Now. It's not coming on. Wait. There it is.
I like your smile. Murder Theater.